Hey, did you hear about Cyrus? Yeah, he's magic, man. Oh, yeah, he got it going on. I'm gonna get some crazy wool tonight.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked ass.
Welcome back to Chat the Movies, the podcast where we answer the question, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? You ever caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I am one of your hosts, Gene Lyons, and alongside me is my co-host, Big D, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
Each week, we take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. The movies we cover are chosen by you, the listeners, who generously commission the films you love. If you'd like to see all the movies we have covered, will cover, want to choose one for yourself, please visit shatpod.com and have a look. At the end of each podcast, we'll provide you, the audience, with the number of wipes each movie takes to get off your respective butts. So thank you so much for listening. If you have not already, hit that subscribe button and share it with a friend. It's how we help the podcast grow. Additionally, subscribe to our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, True Detective, Lovecraft Country, and Watchmen. Find all our information and past episodes at shatpod.com/TV. And finally, if you'd like to hang out with us live, follow us on YouTube at Shat the Movies. There we play video games, host watch parties, and edit this podcast live. All that being said, Big D, what movie are we reviewing today?
Gene, tonight I'm very excited to go back for one of our great listeners, Carlos, to a place that we've done before. Grimy New York City, Escape from New York, Jacob's Ladder. It's a great place. We love going there. Both of us have some experience from our past. So when Carlos wrote in, gave us a list and said, would you consider doing this film? We said, yes, Carlos, we would love to review the 1979 American action thriller film, The Warriors.
Carlos wrote in and said, hey, y'all, Carlos the Mailman here. I am back to work and slowly still making my way through your catalog of episodes. Several things, if I may. First off, thank you so much for the years of hard work and enjoyment you've given your listeners. Though I've just recently discovered Shat, the last few months of listening has been amazing. Myself and my wife, Natasha, the mail lady, will watch a movie at night and listen to your podcast on it the next day. We just recently watched Student Bodies, and though we can't get back the hour and 26 minutes we spent watching it, we enjoyed you guys bashing it the next day. Big D, I also have a racist grandmother who is probably rolling in her grave knowing she has 5 beautiful grandchildren from an interracial marriage. I just finished listening to Reservoir Dogs, and I gotta say, I'm very excited to hear your opening commissions for movies after 2000. And the list that Carlos sent us to choose from, he wanted us to pick the movie. He said, my favorite movies, or movies that have some kind of special meaning to me that you guys haven't done, are Logan's Run, The Warriors, Easy Money, Legend, and Return of the Living Dead. And from that list, we went with The Warriors, dipping into the 70s, but I think after watching it, it's with good reason.
Oh, I think it was the best of these choices. I think the only other one would be maybe Legend. It's young Tom Cruise, the special effects. It had the same effect of terrorizing kids and also invigorating, exciting, the teenage viewers. But that's a film we'll have to get back to at some point.
So this episode goes out to our friends Carlos and Natasha, 2 postal employees from Massachusetts. The Warriors is a 1979 action thriller directed by Walter Hill, based on Saul Urich's 1965 novel of the same name. It was released in the United States in February 1979 and focuses on a fictitious New York City street gang who must travel 30 miles from the north end of the Bronx to their home turf in Coney Island after they're framed for the murder of a respected gang leader. After reports of vandalism and violence, Paramount Pictures temporarily halted the Warriors' advertising campaign and released theater owners from their obligation to show the film. Despite its initially negative reception, The Warriors has since become a cult film and has been reappraised by film critics. It spawned several spinoffs, including video games and a comic book series. So, Big D, I wasn't even alive during the 70s, so we're going to start with you and your memories of The Warriors.
So I did not see this, obviously, when it came out. That would have been child neglect. My parents would have had to explain something if there was a 6-year-old in the theaters, but I saw it after that at some point, HBO. And it terrified me. It terrified me as a kid on some levels that I don't think I've ever really gotten to express or to unravel before. Because you got to remember, I grew up in the suburbs of New York City, about a 20-minute car ride, 30 minutes on Metro North into Manhattan. And this movie scared the shit out of me because my parents, we would go into the city. And I thought this was how New York City was at night. I mean, I'm seeing it on the screen. I don't really know what's real and what's fiction and what's happening. So when we would go into the city, I would slouch down in the back seat of my parents' beige Volvo so I couldn't be seen over the back seat. I would make sure the doors were locked because I had just heard that there was 60,000 gang foot soldiers who were just moments away from taking the island of Manhattan by storm. And I wouldn't be safe, Gene. My family wouldn't be safe. We'd be accosted. We'd be robbed, beat up. Maybe I actually believed this shit was real. It fucked me up.
We clearly had different experiences in New York. Growing up in Queens as a wee baby and going back to visit every summer, I was very social on the train. I wanted to a fault. My mom would actually pull me away from people and be like, yeah, you can't talk to that guy. Don't touch that. I didn't see the Warriors, I'm embarrassed to say, until I was 27. Very bad New Yorker. I was living in Chicago at the time. My best friend, Victoria, and I were out drinking on Halloween when a group walked into a party and they were dressed as the Baseball Furies. And everyone at the party starts losing their fucking minds. And I think the costumes are pretty cool, but I don't know what the big deal is. And so I had to ask, what is this costume? And this entire crowd of people in their 20s and 30s started excitedly telling me about the Warriors. So fast forward a couple hours, we're trashed. Victoria and I end up back at her place, and we're drunkenly watching the Warriors at 4 a.m. And I was absolutely blown away by what I was seeing.
You're making me feel guilty here. Like I was a kid from the suburbs. At 7 years old, when you see something like this, you think there's a boogeyman. I was scared of Sasquatch. I thought Bigfoot was out in the woods upstate.
No, I'm not judging. I mean, if I guarantee you, if my mom had shown me this movie as a kid and then taken me on the E train, I would have been fucking terrified. By the way, going eastbound from our place was a little scary.
I guess I'm just a little defensive. It's a sensitive subject. I'm sorry.
All right, well, let's throw on our colors and hit the trailer.
These are the armies of the night.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
The Furies. The Boppers. The Hi-Hats. The Lizzies. The Turnbull ACs. The Gramercy Riffs.
Riffs!
And these are the Warriors.
We know about the Warriors. They're a heavy outfit.
They're from Coney Island.
Warriors. You guys are the big dudes, huh?
Now they're in the Bronx,
We're going back.
27 miles behind enemy lines.
It's the only choice we got.
Between them and safety stand 20,000 cops and 100,000 sworn enemies.
I want them all. I want all the warriors.
They've got one way out. They've got one chance. They've got one night. The Warriors.
Cyrus, leader of the Gramercy Riffs, the most powerful gang in New York City, requests that each of the city's gangs send 9 unarmed delegates to Van Cortlandt Park for a midnight summit. The Warriors, a gang from Coney Island, attend the summit with 9 delegates. Warlord leader Cleon, War Chief Second in Command Swan, the Scout Fox, the graffiti artist Rembrandt, soldiers Snow, Cowboy, Cochise, and Vermin, and quick-tempered enforcer Ajax. Luther, the leader of another gang called the Rogues, shoots Cyrus dead as police raid the summit and leads the vengeful Riffs to fatally attack Cleon.
So we expect a movie like Apocalypse Now to have multiple versions, director's cut, the final cut, the theatrical cut. I did not know there's a history of the cuts of this film, so I started watching it, and I'm like, man, this feels kind of modern. I did not know that the original version on VHS was released in 1980, and then Laserdisc in 81 was a theatrical version. Then at some point, they stopped releasing that. It fell out of print. And then in 2005, Paramount Home Entertainment released the new cut, and they called it the Ultimate Director's Cut. And it has new intros, which explains why I thought it was so modern. And there's these cool comic book intercuts between the scenes. So anything released since then has to be the new version. So I don't know where you saw this or where our listeners are going to see it, but be aware, people. If you get this almost Marvel intro, an origin story about the Greeks and about 1,000 Greek soldiers being trapped behind the lines and having to fight their way 1,000 miles to the sea. And they're parlaying this into like, it's a comic book story of our heroes. It was kick-ass. And I got to be honest, I was surprised at what a difference these little cuts, cleaning up the film a bit, some of the interesting choices that they made in comic book transitions, it went a long way. George Lucas went off the deep end when he went back and touched the original trilogies with like adding Jabba the Hutt and all that shit. Sometimes being subtle makes a huge difference.
I wish I'd watched that version because I haven't seen it. I think I have to go back and watch it again. I must have watched the theatrical cut. I just watched it on Amazon Prime, but I didn't see any comic book cutscenes. What I did see was lots of these really weird shots where two actors are facing like 45 degrees from each other. And there's like mood lighting of either yellow or green or orange. And then they deliver lines that felt like they were out of a Dare skit. Watch out, the streets are mean tonight. Gotta look out for the Warriors. Gotta keep bopping. It certainly had a comic book feel to it. I felt like I was reading like a Frank Miller book, but I also felt like I was watching like a community theater version of This Is Gangs.
Oh, it totally did. Totally. And they're setting the mood like, hey, did you hear about Cyrus? Yeah, he's magic, man. Oh, yeah. He got it going on. I'm going to get some crazy wool tonight. Like, oh, the dialogue is nuts. But you're building the world. It's a low budget film, Gene. And what people remember this for is the gangs. And when it opens, we join. This is like the UN. We got a 9-member delegation. They're going. Because at first I was like, fuck, how come every gang has 9 people? No, it's a delegation. There's more at home. There's 100 various gangs that are making their way to Van Cortlandt. It's a midnight summit. So they're a sight to behold. We're getting everyone coming out there. And this movie could have taken it easy, Gene. They could have said, let's get 5 or 6 gangs. They're going to be stereotypical. We're going to have a Jamaican gang. Jamaican, what you doing, man? The Rasta group, right? We have some Irish guys, some Italians. We got the African Americans. We got some Asian gang. They're doing like kung fu and karate. You could have made this so predictable, but they went the opposite. It is glorious. There is more groups than you can imagine. I'm watching it, and I went and did some research. I could not believe the number of groups. There's at least 25 individual groups that you can identify, characteristics, outfits, abilities, their neighborhood. They were building some background lore that deserved more than one film.
First off, kudos to the Warriors for not only not using stereotypical gangs based on race, but having a mixed race street gang as the protagonists of the film. You see them getting on the train for the first time. You're like, the Warriors, you got black guys, you got white guys, I think you had an Italian. I'm pretty sure at least one of them is gay. And this is 1979. This took balls. It might be part of the reason why it didn't do so well in the theater, because this was an affront to the eyes of the American viewing public. But you're right, Big D. These costumes are so inventive, and they do so much to help tell people apart, something I know you really appreciate.
I do.
And they also subtly sort of establish gang identities. Even if one of those identities was, hey, we're mimes, at least you know who those guys are, right? And I was a bit disappointed, admittedly, though, in the riffs, right? I didn't remember what they looked like from watching this, nearly 20 years ago. We get to the park. They show up to the summit looking like they got rejected from the set of The Last Dragon. They never really looked tough until the end of the movie. I'm like, they should have looked like that the whole time. And I guess what was going on at the park was that they were wearing their diplomatic garb to Cyrus's speech.
This is their dress clothes.
Yes.
This is their dress piece. So I think, Gene, it would help to go through just a quick roll call of like the major groups,
Sure,
their identifiable traits. We can comment on them. So the 20th group, let's call it, they're the Hurricanes. And this is a group from Spanish Harlem. Their families are hustlers and swindlers. They like to brawl. They got knives. They're of Latin descent, and they're wearing all fedoras. Fedoras and gold chains. Looks like anything else could be maybe a Tommy Bahamas or like some kind of Spanish restaurant.
Yeah, oddly enough, I was kind of intimidated by these guys, particularly the dude that has like no shirt. Because if you show up to a gang meeting with 900 gang members and you're not wearing a shirt, like you've got some guts.
Yeah, you got some balls. Next up, we got the Van Cortlandt Rangers. So these are the mortal enemies of the Moon Runners. They wore black and white striped long sleeve T-shirts. They also have fedoras. They're from Van Cortlandt Park in the Bronx. And they are also known as the VC Rangers, I think because they look like they're of maybe Vietnamese descent.
I'm pretty sure it stands for Van Cortlandt.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe the head guy looks like he's Vietnamese. That's what I was going off of. Van Cortlandt. That makes more sense, Gene.
Oddly enough, their fedora is not as intimidating as the fedoras on the Hurricanes. By the way, I understand that this is making for a great podcast, as we just tell you. These guys have hats. These guys have different hats.
Okay, well, we're going to go to people who don't have hats. The Boyle Avenue Runners, and they look kind of like the Warriors themselves. They travel through the subway. They got black vests, red lining, very similar to the Warriors. You wouldn't be able to differentiate them. We got the Gladiators now. The Gladiators are from Canarsie. More vests, Gene, navy and black. These are the thugs who are the most polite. They decide to pay for their fares, Gene.
No, now this actually makes sense because if you're doing this during like the Giuliani crackdown era, cops would go after the smallest infringement, right? So you don't want to draw attention to yourself by not paying your fare. The cops will be on you immediately. These are the smartest guys because they don't want to get tailed to the actual meeting. In fact, probably the reason the cops showed up at the park was because people weren't paying their fares. They're just like, what are these guys up to? You got 900 people in the subway system today, and only 9 of them paid.
You don't think it was 10,000 people screaming in an open air venue and gunshots that made them show up?
Could have also been that.
But no, these guys, they're organized, Gene. They got like, it looks like the treasurer who comes out and buys them all tokens and stands there. I like that. Next up, we got the Savage Huns. The Savage Huns are like, they're martial artists. You can tell they're of Asian descent. They look like their legs are taped up. They've got quarter-length trousers, a dark batching green top, and their gang, we don't see them much, but they almost look like Tibetan monks to me. Next up, we ap the Panzers, and this is the futuristic version of New York. It's wartime. They're wearing camouflage jackets, black hats, and this is an African-American gang. Gene, we have one here that I think, I know you had mentioned you wish you had seen these guys. These are the Electrical Eliminators. You see them walking through the subway. They look like a bowling team. They've all got on their satin long-sleeved gold jackets with the skull and electricity coming out. I don't know if these guys were electricians or what their backstory is. Do you know anything about these guys, Gene?
The electrical? No, okay. So people haven't seen this movie. You're seeing each of these guys for about 3 seconds going on the subway. I think the longest sequence we get is the guys buying coins, and then they're in a big crowd, and they're all just going, and that's about all you get. So really, I mean, the gangs you got to worry about, oddly enough, is the Warriors, the Turnbull ACs. They get kind of a big role in this movie. Of course, the Rogues, the Riffs. I think the point is that everybody looked like they were going to either a dance competition or a rumble. Or a Chinese restaurant.
Well, Gene, you got the guys in the purple satin vests, or you literally have mimes, a gang of mimes, or guys in overalls and roller skates, or a bunch of people hanging off of a bus. And I'm like, okay, this wouldn't be scary. This wouldn't happen. But then you think about the Joker, how the Joker works in the new Batman. Maybe a mime gang would work. They'd probably be the most terrifying of the bunch.
I think the theory here, that I have at least, is that you can tell the age of the gang, how long ago they were established based on how outlandish their outfits are. Because they're like, well, shit, we can't look like these other guys. So like the Warriors got in, they had vests. And then, the boys came in from Astoria, Queens, and they had to have their vests, but they had different vests. And so you get to the boppers, they got to have like purple vests. Now the Hurricanes, like, we're going to start the hat thing. And then the VCs come in, they're like, well, we want to have hats too, but we'll have different hats. And so it's just going to keep going on and on and on until you get to something like the Baseball Furies.
It's a fashion arms race.
I do want to clear up a misconception about the punks while we're on the topic of the roller skates. I always hear people refer to them as the roller skating gang. There's one fucking guy with roller skates. It's one fucking guy. Yeah. How does that make you a roller skating gang?
It's the Mandela effect. I believed they were all on roller skates, and I was watching the movie.
Yeah, that would make the Rogues the gun gang because one guy's got a gun.
Yeah.
Or the Warriors, the big dick gang.
The big dick gang?
Yeah, Vermin has a big dick.
I would say that they're more the Indian. I would have thought something about their fashion. That would have been the...
Jesus Christ.
Who's going to know he's got the big dick?
He tells everybody.
But that's normally the guy who doesn't have a big dick. I don't trust him.
Getting to the gun, though. Everyone knows the Cyrus speech from the Warriors. Even if you've never seen the movie, you know that like infamous, like, can you dig it? It's great. 40-something years later, this scene, this gathering at the park, it's electric, it's entertaining. But I feel like the filmmakers really fumbled perhaps the most important moment in the entire film, right? Which is Cyrus being shot by Luther from the Rogues. There's a crowd, cameras panning left and right. It's like JFK. You're wondering, oh God, something's going to happen, right? You're feeling this sort of tension. And then they show a gun passing from hand to hand through the crowd. Then they show Luther gets the gun and then he takes aim at Cyrus. It erases all of the shock from the moment. Why would you telegraph the surprise? Remember, this is 1979, okay? There's no internet. You probably didn't see a trailer for this movie because it's pretty underground. You don't know what's going to happen. You just know that there's going to be some gangs, roughing each other up in New York City. Why telegraph the surprise? Scenes like this are way more effective when you have zero suspicion there's going to be a shooting. This is an unforced error on part of the movie. Just let the crowd be going. Cyrus is giving his big speech, and then bam, he gets shot.
Totally. And it makes it seem like it's a bigger conspiracy. Like there's more people involved. You had to have seen the gun being handed along the way. More people handled it. If you just have a gunshot, maybe don't even show us that's Luther. Just the muzzle flash. You don't know who it is. There's a mystery. There's a lot of people who would benefit from his death. The mafia, the police, maybe one of the other gangs, maybe the second in command. There's a lot of ways this could have gone. And I agree, Gene, by tipping your hand right away and letting us understand it, it relieves some of the tension that they did a good job building up so quickly.
This conspiracy that you're peddling kind of works for me because the Riffs, they're supposed to be the toughest gang in New York City, but their security seems to be absolute dog shit. They know they're going to have 900 gang members showing up to the crowded space. Their guy Cyrus is the top dog in the entire city. Your weapon screening in this sort of a scenario has to be airtight. But I get it, like mistakes happen, right? Presidents have been assassinated, unfortunately. It's forgivable. We don't indict the Secret Service for not catching every weapon that enters a place. But you do have an additional line of security, which is your physical bodies between the crowd and the principal, right? How do you line up directly against the crowd and not notice where a gunshot came from? This isn't 50,000 people. It's 900 people. And then when panic ensues, which basically seemed to be a bunch of extras in the park just running around in circles for a long time. Like I could have gotten out of the park in that time and I'm not particularly fast. The Riff's security detail, they just stand there. Like, is there a fucking exit strategy? Is there a contingency plan? No, they're just standing there in their kimonos hanging out.
But it reeks of an inside job. It was almost intentionally incompetent. And he wasn't shot with a long rifle. No. This wasn't something from the trees or the bushes. It was like a snub-nosed revolver from like 5 feet away. Then he turns around. Oh, it was the Warriors. What about the 50 people who were packed in there who's like, oh man, a gun just went off next to my head. You turn around, there's no Warriors there. There was no mystery. They could have done this so there would have been a believable, a plausible deniability for Luther. But instead, everybody would have turned around immediately and jumped him.
Well, after the shooting, the remaining Warriors escape, unaware that the Riffs put out a hit on them through a radio DJ. The Turnbull ACs spot the Warriors and try to run them down with a school bus, but the Warriors escape and board an elevated train. The train is stopped by a building fire alongside the tracks, stranding the Warriors in Tremont. On foot, they encounter the orphans. After Mercy, the girlfriend of the orphans' leader, instigates a confrontation, Swan throws a Molotov cocktail, and the Warriors run to the nearest subway station. Impressed, Mercy follows the Warriors.
So for those of you who are not from New York or haven't visited, I'm just going to lay it out. It's really a straightforward city to navigate. For the most part, it is a giant grid north to south. The streets go east to west, ascending higher number as you go north. The avenues run north and south and go higher as you go to the left. So when you look at it, when you're looking at a map, it's easy to know. If I want to go from 50th Street to 52nd, I go north 2 streets. The gang should be able to navigate this no problem. But they look at the map and they make a joke like, I'm not a scientist. I can't determine what that map does. There's no way they could be trapped. I don't know why the Warriors in these gangs are like struggling to figure out. The Warriors are in the north. They want to go dead south. It's 30 miles, but they're in the city. So there's limited trains they could be on. All you need to do is go, okay, hey, orphans, you go watch that train station. Okay, the Turnbull ACs, you go park your bus over at Grand Central. You park them throughout. You should be able to have your hands on these guys in like no time because there's limit. It's an island, people. That's why it was made into a federal prison in Escape from New York. You know where they're going. You should get them.
I hear you, Big D. I hear you, but I think back to my childhood in New York City, and most of my relatives who lived in Queens never went to Brooklyn. They never went to the Bronx. I can imagine it's plausible that a group of kids from Coney Island probably did not make a habit of venturing into other gangs' territory. And you don't really go to Manhattan unless you got money. Like, let's be honest. Like, you don't. I mean, I didn't go to Manhattan until I was a fucking adult because we didn't have the money. That being said, that defense of the Warriors standing, they certainly could have walked faster.
Yes.
Like that, there's no reason to walk as those.
Yes.
There were several times when they were either talking to people, like parlaying, or hiding, and they hid or parlayed longer than it would have taken to just walk at a normal pace to the next train station. They're really shooting themselves in the foot here.
Yeah, and I agree. I think people put too much emphasis in fabric. And as somebody who served in the military, I'm a proud American. I don't get bent out of shape when you burn a flag. It's a piece of fucking fabric. It does not symbolize to me the core belief in America, but people are different, and I respect whatever you believe. But here, as far as the gangs, I don't get how much they love their uniforms. The Warriors, they're on the run. They're being hunted. They're facing the same problem as Judgment Night. But in Judgment Night, it was only like 5 or 6 like B-level, like lower level goons, who were going to come after them. Here, it is the whole city. It is every criminal is out there looking for them. Take your colors off, buddy. I know you respect the Warriors and your vest. It looks jazzy. It looks nice. You got your turquoise beads and feathers. Take off your fucking vest. Put on a shirt. Blend in. There's no moral victories. Take them off. It says on the back, Gene, in giant letters, the Warriors. Even if you don't know who the Warriors are, like say the orphans didn't know. Hey, what gang are you guys? Oh, yeah, it says the Warriors on their back. You know who it is. And Gene, you're the only member of a gang. You were in a moped gang. If you were put in a similar situation, like there was a rival moped gang and it was going to go to some kind of fisticuffs, are you taking off your colors or are you going to die for the honor of the gang?
I've been in this situation before as a member of Motion Left. So I have a couple of jackets with my colors on the back. And gone to bars like in Chicago, parts of Indiana where this situation happened. Austin as well. It happened in Austin as well. And it's usually like some biker from some local motorcycle club. It's not like we were dealing with like the Mongols or something like that or the Hells Angels or anything. I just take the fucking jacket off.
Yes.
Like if I see the dudes, I don't even have to have that conversation. But here's the thing. Even in a situation where I know I could take the dude, I'm still taking the jacket off because it's just a fucking unnecessary confrontation. Like there's nothing to be gained from that. However, not for the fucking orphans, I wouldn't. Not for the fucking orphans. These guys are a bunch of sweaty, uggo goobers.
Yeah.
Like their entire outfit consists of dad jeans and like an olive drab t-shirt with orphans on the back in block letters. I guess the guy that like stepped up next to their leader to like threaten the Warriors was their enforcer. This guy looked like a tubby short Troy Polamalu. You take off your colors for those guys, you remove your leather vest, and you're going to be targeted by every gang in New York City for life. Fuck the orphans. Also, shout out to the Orphans Moped Club out of Greenpoint. Rest in peace. You guys were great.
Yeah, I think their purpose in the hierarchy of the gangs and the stratification is they're the litmus test. If you become a bitch to the orphans, then nobody respects you. They relegate you down to the next level gang like these guys are because they're bad. You could tell they're weak. They just need one punch in the nose. And they've run away from a Molotov cocktail that you see coming a mile away, rip a skirt, tuck it in the bottle. They're like 8 feet away. Hey, what are you doing with that bottle of liquor and that lighter? Oh, nothing. Let's step over here. We're going to throw it at the car, giant fireball. And you run away.
The best part about them is when they finally like go get all their weapons and they're confronting the Warriors and their leaders just got like a straight razor. You see what happens when you mess with the orphans. You see?
You get a nice tidy shave. Come over here. I'm not gonna nick you. Come over here.
It looked like 30 Gale the Snails from Always Sunny in Philadelphia coming at you. And if you haven't seen the Warriors before, please, when you watch it, temper your expectations when it comes to action sequences. This movie is less Gangs of New York and more West Side Story. You got the Warrior Scout Fox. He's like prancing around to be stealthy. They're outrunning buses that seem to have a top speed of, 5 miles per hour. They're gracefully hurdling turnstiles. And Big D, as you mentioned, when it comes to finally do something violent, like throwing a firebomb, yeah, they don't throw it at the orphans. Swan throws it at a car next to the orphans. But they don't bust people's heads. They never stab anybody. They've got plenty of opportunities to fuck people up. They're talking about wasting dudes. They're not wasting anybody.
No, they always talk about you're weak. You look like a wimp. If you set this to a whimsical score, I want to be in America. Everything great in America. It could be, yeah. Think Michael Jackson's Bad.
Yep.
Fighting with pool sticks and, down in the subways. That's what it is. Because there's a scene, Gene, we're going to come to here, where they're fighting in a bathroom with like cork baseball bats in tight quarters. And it is awful.
This is one of the smartest fight scenes I've ever seen in cinema. And I needed a Krav Maga 2nd degree black belt to break it down for me. Because I'm talking to Sarah watching the movie. I say, so the whole trap here is that they go into the stalls in the bathroom. And when the punks come up to attack them, they shove the stall doors open and they surprise the punks and they take them out. And Sarah says, no, this is actually quite genius. What happens here? Swan is surveying these guys when he's got his back to them, and Mercy comes up and she's like, yeah, there's guys following you. He's like, yeah, now they know that I know. He's been watching them, Big D, and he's noting that all of them are right-handed except for the guy with the roller skates. He's left-handed. And so what they do is they go into this bathroom because Swan knows that in this bathroom, the doors open from right to left.
Shut the fuck up.
So when they throw these doors open, it takes away the strong arm of each of the attackers, right? They can't fight because they just got hit by a door and they've only got their weak lead arm. So you've got you got a window there to go after them, even if they're armed, because they're probably going to carry a bat or a chain or something in their right hand. You've negated that weapon, that force multiplier, and you go after them. Here's the genius part. The one guy with the switchblade and the roller skates, he's left-handed. So what do? He goes to the left stall, and Rembrandt, knowing that when he throws that door open, he's not going to be able to disarm the guy, he sprays him in the face with the spray paint, which takes him out. So this was a genius tactical maneuver by the Warriors.
This might be the highlight of my Shat fucking career, Gene. You breaking this down, you're spot on. And these guys are master planners, Gene, but they can't read a fucking subway map.
No.
But they've navigated. And to Gene's credit, people, I'm looking at a picture of the group as he's describing this, and I think he's full of shit. There's no way he did this. They fucking are all right-handed except for the guy with the skates.
The guy that gets sprayed.
He's 100. Gene, without looking, who had the baseball bat? What did he look like?
Of the Warriors or
no, of the punks. One had a bat.
He had overalls and a striped shirt.
Bingo, that could have been any of them. But yes, he's the older with the bumblebee Oh, yeah. Gene, I think you might be spot on. They're tactician. They're geniuses.
Marry to keep her.
Yeah.
When the group arrives at the 96th Street and Broadway station in Manhattan, they are pursued by police and separated. Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt escape by boarding a subway car. Fox, struggling with a police officer, is thrown onto the tracks and killed by a passing train as Mercy flees the scene. Swan, Ajax, Snow, and Cowboy are chased by the Baseball Furies into Riverside Park and defeat them in a brawl. After the fight, Ajax sees a lone woman sitting on a park bench and becomes sexually aggressive. The woman, revealed to be an undercover police officer, arrests him.
So as I hit 50, I have to question whether I've changed in any ways. And watching the Warriors, I'm having a difficult time. I've already said, take off your colors. I don't understand why they're not turning themselves in. Maybe it's because of my age. I'm like, dude, what's the downside? Go in, get an attorney. You'll be safe. You get back to Coney Island. What crime have they really committed? Besides, yes, he was sexually aggressive when she seemed willing. That wasn't necessary. She seemed like she was like, hey, you want to party? She seemed open to it. And then he became grabby. But outside of that, what do you got? Destruction of the property. They set the car on fire. They hopped a couple turnstiles, fair evasion, but I don't get it. I don't get why. You now get Fox gets killed, and I'm screaming, turn yourselves in. Why not? Did they distrust the police? I know, Gene, you don't trust them. Did they distrust the police that much that they would take the risk of dying, then go to the police station, get released, go home?
So first of all, I completely agree with you in the park bench situation. That was clear entrapment. Like, she lured him in. She gave him the impression that, she wanted to party or whatever.
Go to Pound Town.
And yes, he was very aggressive with her. I get that. But the fact of the matter is that it's like, that's not going to hold up in court. There's no way that holds up in court. I mean, not that fucking Ajax has an attorney. But yeah, I agree with you. When I saw the fire on the tracks, I go, okay, there's the fire department's right there. So why don't you get off the train, go stand by the fire, wait for the authorities to arrive, and they can take you home. But I think we have to put ourselves in the shoes of the Warriors. At this point, they don't know that they're being hunted for Cyrus's death. So for all they know, they just have to make it back to Coney Island without the cops finding them. They know that other gangs are out there and that the truce is off, but they don't know they're actually being hunted. And so in that scenario, I think I also would just keep heading for home. But what I certainly would not do is try to get laid at the park or take any detours. Like, none of these guys are taking the situation very seriously. You're very far from home. You only have 9 of your guys and you don't have any weapons. This is a problem. And what I want to know is, the cops are clearly going after the Warriors, but why aren't they also hunting down the Baseball Furies, the Turnbull ACs, and all the other gangs that fled the summit? It seems like they're only singling out the Warriors.
See, I don't know. I thought that too, Gene, where I thought maybe they don't know. But right after Cyrus is shot, you get Luther turns around and he sees the flamboyant member of the Warriors, the fashionable one, who is standing there looking guilty as hell. I mean, quickly, we talked about once about how I was in class in college on a plastic chair in the back of the room, leaned back, farted, and the plastic chair amplified it throughout the room. The whole class turned around and looked at me. I immediately looked to my right and took all of that gaze and directed it to a new victim. Now everyone assumes she was the farter. That's what they did here. They just looked at the Warriors. He could have said, that wasn't me, it was you, and then run away. Instead, Fox stood there, and Fox's death now makes sense. That's why the information died with him.
Yeah, up until the Lizzies, they don't find out that they're being targeted. And as I mentioned earlier, Big D, my introduction to the Warriors was the Baseball Furies. And I think that most people, this is their favorite gang in the movie. They're easily the scariest looking outfit in New York. They're probably the only intimidating looking ones other than the riffs in the final scene. But after seeing the Baseball Furies in action, I have so many questions, because you are a baseball themed gang. So I would imagine that you'd be athletic. They are not particularly athletic. They look like they're struggling to catch the Warriors running through Riverside Park. And their whole identity is baseball bats. So that is your specialty, right? But they lose in a bat fight to the unarmed Warriors. And I just wonder, Big D, have you ever in your life swung a bat downward like an axe? Because they're sword fighting. They are sword fighting with these bats. Nobody's busting skulls. They're just bopping bellies, throwing bats at cops' legs. It's very disappointing.
Yeah, I think it's sad. If your identity, if you are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle with nunchucks, you should know how to use a nunchuck.
Right.
That should be your special skill. It looks like maybe it was just that the actors had never swung a bat. It looked like you told the actors, hey, swing the opposite way that it was like me swinging right-handed. It would look very much like their bat attacks.
Also, little self-defense tip from Gene Lyons here. If somebody swings a bat at you, do not duck. That is the worst move you can possibly do is duck. You're putting your head exactly where it would need to be to get fucking smashed. And people can adjust where the bat is going. If you've ever watched Major League Baseball or baseball at any level, okay, you can adjust where the bat is.
Gene, I'm more terrified let's just say we were having a choice of a bat or a machete.
Yeah.
I think a bat would terrify me more.
Yes, 100%.
You agree with that?
Yes.
What's the rationale behind that? Just so I can...
You can take a hit from a machete and it's going to cut into your flesh for sure. The dangerous part of the machete that could actually like hack off a limb, it's a fairly limited part of the blade and it has to be swung with some serious fucking force. A bat, you could take a child with a bat and if they hit you in the fucking head, it's going to hurt really badly. But the thing with the bat is that it can break bone or it can knock you out. So the machete, at least if you get hit by it, you're likely to stay conscious, so you can continue to fight. You get hit by the bat, and if it takes out, if it hits you in your head, then that's it, game over.
So now my natural instinct would be to close the distance, much like a nuclear sub trying to get within range of the enemy torpedoes before they get armed. Is that a mistake or is that correct?
That's absolutely what you want to do. Never move away from a bat. So you want to protect the side of your body and burst in toward the armpit, basically. That's because if they don't hit you with the sweet spot, it's not that effective a weapon.
Well, thank you, Gene. Knowing is half the battle.
Next time you're in town, we'll show you some baseball bat defenses. It's great. Don't duck.
I won't.
And now, Big D, I'd like to take you back to a classic Shat move. It's a little page of the old Shat playbook. Mm-hmm. I'm going to probably wrongly identify some latent homosexuality in an aggressive male character. Now, this is something for you old Shat heads that we used to do on a daily basis. You go back to like Top Gun, oh boy, did we see the gay everywhere.
It is.
Ajax, played by Harry Remar from Dexter, he's got to be a closeted gay. This guy keeps feeling the need to prove he's macho. He keeps calling everybody faggots, which is a word that we've had now 2 weeks in a row on the podcast.
Ajax is the one who tried to rape the girl.
Yes.
Oh, you think he's gay?
Yeah, he's the one that keeps calling everybody faggots.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. So this guy keeps feeling the need to prove he's macho. He keeps calling everybody faggots. And when he finally does get the chance to get it on with a woman, he gets really, really violent with her. Like, he's not trying to enjoy himself sexually. He's just being fucking violent. So many things about this guy scream out to me that he is fighting some homosexual feelings.
You see, I would normally say, Gene, you're onto something, except I saw gay somewhere else. I sensed gay in Rembrandt.
Well, I think Rembrandt is gay, but I think he's like openly gay.
I guess my gaydar is way off. I didn't pick up that nobody ever addresses it.
Did you notice him in the house with the Lizzies?
Yes, that's where I thought he looked sassy. He looks like, he looks
sassy. He looks like he's not trying to hook up with any of the ladies.
Right.
Because he's gay.
But this was the 70s. To me, that was like, wow, we're telegraphing it. You're going deeper here with Ajax.
We'll put a poll up on a Twitter poll. Is Ajax gay? And then also, did you notice that Rembrandt was gay, Big D?
Of course. Well, at least I noticed that. It was better than the pub in Long Good Friday. You know, I could tell that.
Here's a crazy one that a lot of people don't know, though, is in the Birdcage.
Shut your fucking mouth, you fucking dick.
Robin Williams.
He's gay, yes.
Gay.
You're fucking dick.
Arriving at Union Square, Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt are seduced by an all-female gang called the Lizzies. When the Lizzies attack them, the Warriors learn that the gangland community believe the Warriors murdered Cyrus. Swan returns to the 96th Street station where Mercy joins him. They reunite with the remaining Warriors and fight the roller skating punks. Only one of them has roller skates. Meanwhile, an unidentified gang member tells the Riffs that he saw Luther shoot Cyrus.
So, Gene, we're introduced here now. We've got all of our other groups. We're going to meet the group that is supposed to obviously fill the girl gang. And they start off strongly. They lure in the Warriors into their lair. They're seducing them with like, hey, you want to party? Come on, we'll give you a safe haven. They seem to be the first friendly faces the Warriors have seen. After some dancing, there's some flirting, there's some kissing, there's some sassy looks from Rembrandt. They're trapped and they're ambushed. It's Vermin, Cochise, and Rembrandt. And then these group of women went from like the symbol of female power to complete and utter incompetence in the flip of a switch. How, Gene? How did these three unarmed men who had relaxed, they're in their locked lair. Multiple members of the Lizzies have handguns. The Warriors are unarmed, aroused, just they're tired. They can't shoot them. The Lizzies spend too much time fucking dancing, go to the range. How could these women were incompetent?
Right? This is a 10 by 10 room.
Awful.
Cochise and Vermin are basically lounging with their eyes closed. And I figure, okay, not all three of these guys are going to die, but someone's going to fucking die. Nobody gets shot. None of the women get shot. None of the Warriors get shot. Nobody gets shot. And then they run from the place. They duck down an alley for a second. Then they go back on the same street. And the Lizzies are nowhere to be found. Like, they're not serious. They're not serious.
You could have lured them into individual bedrooms. You say, hey, I'm going to go wash up. You just shoot them on the fucking bed, but they'd probably miss them. It would have been like, boom, 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 boom. Hold on, I got to reload. Boom, boom. It was incompetence.
You take a lesson from the Long Good Friday. You have the shooter come in the door because then you can't get out the door. That's where the shooter is. Bam, bam, bam. They're done.
I like it.
Yeah,
I would.
And then everyone gets in a car for a very long ride.
A long ride of reflection, Gene. A lot of reflection on what's happened in the life choices you made. And as much as this movie is over-the-top gangs of mimes and one roller skating guy with overalls and some jazzy outfits and sequence, and it's a bit theatrical. It's a West Side Story. There was a moment, Gene, that caught me completely off guard. And I want to see if I'm, again, reading into this. It is the train ride home. They're finally in the final leg. They're going to get down to Coney Island, and they're sitting on the train, and all the Warriors are beat up. They're dirty. They've had a long night. They're bloody. They're bruised. And these four kids come on the train, and we're going to assume that they're wealthy because they look like they've come from the prom. They're dressed up in what would have been considered chic in 1979. They sit down, they're laughing, they're having a good time, and they look across, and there's the two couples from the prom. They're looking at Swan and Mercy. And for this moment, Mercy, who has been this hard as nails character, she has survived. She's gone along with, first she was with the orphans. There's a moment where you start to see she's self-conscious, that she looks down, her fingernails are filthy, her feet are filthy, and she starts to straighten her hair, and Swan swats her hand away. And he's like silently saying, be proud of who you are. We are created by the environment we're in. Don't be embarrassed. Don't try to be something. Am I reading something more? And again, there's no dialogue. It is silent. It is just glances. And it was almost too powerful. This is like, Gene, you talking about them plotting out left-handed, right-handed direction of attacks in a bathroom. Am I making something that wasn't there?
No, you're not. I do want to point out for the listeners that he does not swat her hand. He gently redirects her hand down. He's
okay, that was a bit much. I'm sorry.
But you know, you're right. The historic and artistic significance of the Warriors is this scene. It's a powerful, natural statement on the fact that the infighting between the gangs, it's nothing compared to the class struggle. Like, they're all at each other, but really they're all a lot more like each other than they think. And no matter the differences between Swan and Mercy that we've seen throughout the film, or his incessant slut shaming of her, which is super uncool, Swan wants her to be proud of her class status. This to me was like Pulp's Common People, but presented as film. I thought it was very powerful and gave the film an added dimension that I really didn't expect.
And I like at the end when he picks up the flowers. He doesn't make a romantic gesture, and he takes them and he says, I just don't like to see things go to waste. I think it fits in with what you're saying.
He wasn't just talking about the flowers.
I know, it's just not expected from a movie like this.
Oh. At dawn, the Warriors reach Coney Island and find Luther and the Rogues waiting for them. Swan challenges Luther to single combat, but Luther pulls a gun. Swan dodges his shot and throws a switchblade into Luther's wrist, disarming him. The Rifts arrive, acknowledging the warriors' courage and skill before apprehending the rogues. The radio DJ announces that the big alert has been called off and salutes the warriors with a song, Joe Walsh is in the city. The film ends with Swan, Mercy, and the rest of the gang walking down a Coney Island beach, illuminated by the rising sun. So Big D, we finally get to see Coney Island, which Swan finds very disappointing. He asks, like, we went through all that just to come home to this. And I think it looks kind of nice. And I also realized through all the landmarks that I see at Coney Island and my personal fondness for Coney Island that I was super disappointed, surprisingly, in the Warriors' generic ass name. Like, of all the gangs in this movie, these guys had the opportunity to have a cool name. They could have been the Conies. They could have been the Dogs. They could have been the Islanders or the Wonder Wheels, right? Like, show some imagination. And while we're on that topic, I really want to know why the punks were called the punks.
They were punks.
How?
They were very punky.
Okay.
Come on. What are the hi-hats?
Well, the hi-hats are like, I'm a mime. They're kind of showy. And the VCs clearly were Vietnamese.
No, this was all created. This was an arms race in fashion, Gene.
That's all it was.
One of them became jazzier than the other, and they had to just accelerate to a pace they couldn't keep up.
So Big D, in the 6 years or so that we've been doing this podcast, we cover a lot of 80s and 90s movies that have an often quoted catchphrase, right? And when we actually end up seeing it in film, it's pretty disappointing. Either it's misquoted or it's just sort of a throwaway line that doesn't really mean anything in the movie, but not here. Luther shows up. There's like 80 dudes packed in one car. They roll up. They're near the pier. And he's got bottles on his fingers and he's just clinking and doing that. Warriors come out to play. And his pitch just gets higher and higher. It's so creepy. It's so effective. It makes you really fucking hate the guy. And I think out of all of the 80s movies, perhaps this is like the quote of quotes.
So yeah, I remember this scene differently though, Gene, like you said. I thought this was at night.
Yes.
I thought this was while they were being trapped. It's not. And the reason I think I was confused is because he plays a similar role in The Crow. When they're driving around the dark cities at night with the cars packed, I'm like, okay, this happens at night. No, it's during the day and it works. And the movie, we're coming to an end here. And I'm thinking, we got a lot to wrap up. There's not that much time left. I'm in my head playing it out because we've now seen hundreds of movies. I'm like, okay, this may be Judgment Night. We're going to go through the final chase. It's gone all night. We're going to get almost home. There's going to be a giant confrontation. We're going to get a prolonged fight between Swan and Luther. They're both going to be throwing giant haymakers. It's going to just be one person's down, then the other person comes back, swings of momentum. Then Swan in the end is going to win, and he's going to like maybe pick up like an audio tape or a piece of paper that proves that the Warriors were innocent. Nope. The Warriors does not have fucking time for that. All they do is give us one ridiculous like carnival knife throw, like a switchblade into the wrist. Luther's gun goes off. He deflects it. He kind of drops the gun. They come out. The gang knows the Warriors are innocent. They walk off. It is tightly, all the bows, everything is done, except for the fact that maybe you know that Fox is dead and Ajax in jail. We'll deal with that the next day. It is tidy. There's no big reveal or big fight. It was nice.
So in Krav, students will invariably ask during knife defenses, what if, I see the knife and the person's far away from me? And always the answer is, well, you run. Like, you don't try to fight a guy that's 10 feet away from you with a knife. And then they always ask a follow-up question, which is, what if they throw the knife at me? And I saw a student ask our chief instructor, Derek, that question once. And he said, if they can throw a knife at you and hit you, they deserve to kill you. Because that's how fucking hard it is. And a switchblade at that? No, that's not happening. But what I was wondering is, why didn't anybody go for the gun?
Yeah.
Luther gets stabbed in the arm. He drops the gun. There's like a dozen people around a loaded gun that just fell to the ground. Not one person dives for it. And I'm not saying grab it and start shooting everybody. Why don't the Warriors jump on it, smother that gun? I don't need a crazy action scene, but that part just kind of didn't sit with me right. If you're one of the rogues, you know that the Rifts just showed up to kick all your fucking asses. Grab a gun.
No, Gene, if you saw fucking a dude throw a switchblade into the hand of a guy who's going to shoot you. The gun goes off into the air. The gun drops. It's stuck through a leather jacket into his hand. I'm not fucking with Swan. There's a knife around Swan. I'm doing nothing. I'm saying, Swan, I'm not diving for the gun. He might throw a knife in my back. Who knows how many knives he's got?
Counter argument. When's the last time you saw a bunch of black dudes from the Bronx show up with hockey sticks? Like, everything about that picture tells me that this is not a good situation.
No, it's not. No, it's not at all.
Black gang members with hockey sticks? Like, that's a special occasion.
Yeah, they went down to like the white neighbor's basement and said, you guys got anything we could swing? Yeah, we got some hockey sticks.
There's also one guy with nunchucks, so.
But they're very polite. You guys may leave.
Oh, yeah, the big courteous hand.
Yep.
And go.
Yep.
All right, now's the time in the podcast where we give our Shat score for the Warriors. The Shat score is our way of telling you how many wipes this movie takes to get out of your respective butts. 0 wipes is a perfect movie when you get to be a Top Gang's official graffiti artist just by spray painting W's. And 5 wipes is an absolute disaster. It's remembering that your new girlfriend fucked the orphans. Big D, we'll start with you. What is your wipe score for the Warriors?
So it's hard because I saw the Ultimate Director's Cut and it made it feel contemporary. It was clean. This could be a movie made within the last, 15 years. It is a cult classic. It is not a great movie, but it is better than I remembered. And the cartoon panels they do to narrate the story and explain where people are and how they're getting around made it, I think, better than it would have been with the traditional starting at the Ferris wheel. I got to go 2.15 wipes. It was better than average. It was much better than it deserves. A bit theatrical, yes, but they had a lot of fun doing it. And when they went for it, Gene, you can't deny. They went for it with a guts and a love that you can only appreciate with a score of 2.15 wipes.
2.15. Okay. Well, Big D, I'm fully aware that the score I'm about to give is more for the style of this film than the substance of the film. But when a movie has this much style, I can overlook some of the gaps in substance. The action scenes were pretty bad. The characters' behaviors were idiotic at best. And if ever a movie were ripe for a remake, I think it would be this one. I enjoyed it a lot, but it's not particularly well made. I'm going to have to go 2.5 wipes, which gives us an average wipe score of 2.325 wipes for the Warriors.
So, Gene, and I think partially it's because I gave it a 2.15
you
wipe.
Think?
Yes, it could be. So that is now, this film is all alone on its own in the 163 spot. It is slightly better. Oh, I'm already going to regret that. I feel like, Gene, I need to retcon this because it's now slightly better than Rocky IV, Point Break, and Casino, and slightly worse than Liar Liar, The Final Countdown, Clerks, True Romance, and The Wedding Singer.
Again, speaks to the fact that it's been too long since you watched Rocky IV or Point Break. And if you go back and watch them, you'll realize that they are flawed movies.
Well, Roger, again, gave both of those 3.5 wipes. So,
or that.
Yeah, that could have done it.
Yeah, it's trying to help Roger out. Who am I?
The Warriors is better than I remembered it.
Same. What do we have coming up next week?
Gene, next week, computer hacker Martin heads a group of specialists who test the security of various San Francisco companies. Martin is approached by 2 national security agencies officers who ask him to steal a newly invented decoder. Martin and his team discover that the black box can crack any encryption code, posing a huge threat in the hands of the wrong person. When Martin realizes the NSA men who approached him are rogue agents, they frame him for murder and the device's inventor. This was commissioned by Leah H., came out in 92. And I love films with espionage and some old tech. This is some hacker shit right here. It's in the trash. It's in the trash.
It's in the trash.
It's in the trash. Hack the planet. It's in the trash.
Well, thank you, Lee H., for commissioning our upcoming film. Thank you, Carlos the Mailman, and Natasha the Mail Lady for commissioning The Warriors. Thank you to all our commissioners for making this podcast possible. That concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media, share with a friend. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Email us, host@shatpod.com. Support the podcast by shopping our Amazon affiliate link, buying our merch, or by commissioning your own movie. Find all that information by visiting our website, shatpod.com. Also, please check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Lovecraft Country, Westworld, True Detective, Taboo, American Gods, Game of Thrones, and Watchmen. Find all that information on our website, shatpod.com/TV. We're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by Apple Podcasts, please leave a 5-star review. It helps the podcast grow. On behalf of my co-host, Big D, I'm Gene Lyons. Join us next week for the following movie.
This LTX-71 concealable mic is part of the same system that NASA used when they faked the Apollo moon landings. Worked for them. Shouldn't give us too many problems.
They break and enter.
How are we doing?
Cars in position on the fire escape. Mother's in the cable vault.
Preparing to sever master circuit.
But they're not thieves.
We're getting too old for this.
They know your secrets. But they're not spies.
Gotta be there somewhere. What's he doing?
He's making a really.
Mr. Bishop, do you mind if I take a look?
Carl, grow up.
I give you something to work, baby.
So people hire you to break into their places to make sure no one can break into their places?
It's a living.
Not a very good one.
Now they've got a new client.
National Security Agency.
I don't work for the government.
Relax, Marty. It's just everybody on your team has had some sort of problem in their past.
Now what are you saying? The NSA killed Kennedy?
No, they shot him, but they didn't kill him. He's still alive.
They may not want the job.
Liz, I need your help.
I will not be dragged back into your world.
But they don't have a choice.
We don't want to bust you. We want to hire you. We're the good guys, Marty.
Can't tell you what a relief that is, Dick. Your job is to find that little black box. We got it.
Holy cow. What the hell is this?
There's a war out there, old friend. A world war.
Oh my God.
How is this possible?
It's not about who's got the most bullets. It's about who controls the information.
Anybody want to shut down the Federal Reserve?
Hey, don't screw around with that thing. It's all about the information.
So it's a code breaker.
No, it's the code breaker.
Battle stations.
Do you have the item?
Can you guarantee my safety?
Where is the item?
Can you guarantee my safety?
Martin, you've got trouble.
Here, maybe this might help. An old buddy of mine who was in Desert Storm sent it to me. Of course, he was on the other side.
Now give me the bomb, Marty!
I'm an excellent marksman, woman.
I'm Carl.
There's a fire escape at the end of the north corridor. Go directly north, about 30 yards.
5 seconds. Hang up, fish. Hang up. They've almost got us.
Wow, look at me. Look at that.
Good memory.
Look at the fucking wow. Wait, is it really? Boom. Fuck, I'm good.